everybody. I'm just joking. This is the Beer and Boots podcast. We are back at the SCNRA Crane and Rigging Workshop 2025 in Indianapolis.
And the beer is here, and we have Truxton Malbon from Berkley Underwriters.
Yes, we knew that you guys wanted to hear about more insurance. But no, this is going to be awesome. Why? Property inland marine. The lifeblood of your company, your equipment, your rigger's liability, your property. And we have the guy that puts it all together. So, Truxton, thank you very much for being here. And I think you ready to take it away?
Yeah, just tell us about yourself, why you are at the SCNRNA show, what brought you here?
Yeah, so our position being an inland marine market, coming to these events allow us to connect with our preferred agent partners like Gallagher right here, but also to connect with the industry. We get insight into what's going on a daily basis, what types of struggles crane operators are experiencing. A lot of the times you may get a general idea, but coming to here, you hear it from the operators, from the business owners, what is driving their daily thoughts, kind of what they're concerned with, and kind of where they feel the marketplace is going. Specific to what we do is provide inland marine coverage. That is a little bit of a nuance, but what inland marine is basically anything in motion or in transit. So like your crane, it travels from job site to job site. It won't be considered property, it will be considered inland marine and specifically contractors' equipment. What we do for the crane operations is provide their capacity for the crane's physical damage, their installation exposures. Potentially, if you're a larger operation, you store items of others, that warehousing or personal property of others exposure, the rigging exposure if it isn't placed in the GL market. And by rigging exposure, we mean the actual items while they're on hook or while you're transiting that item to the job site to be rigged. That really kind of explains what we do from an inland marine standpoint. And specific to Berkley Fire Marine, we have been in the crane industry and working with Gallagher since our inception, and now we've just reached 10 years. So we're looking forward to continuing to grow with our market partners.
Awesome. And so whenever, we are sitting with our insurance, I think a lot of things that pop up is they're like, hey, can we get a quote tomorrow? Why isn't this, what's going on? So whenever we are sending over a submission and you're opening that email at your desk, what are some specific things that you're looking for as an underwriter? We want to have them understand how the brain works behind the scenes.
So we need the hard pieces of information, right? Your loss history, your schedule of equipment, what the items you lift are, kind of how expansive or how difficult do your lifts get? Do you guys do critical lifts, 75% of your load capacity, or do you guys have tandem lift exposures? So what will happen is your agent partner will work with you. They'll complete a supplemental, and then we review that information. What could provide us and allow us to look at your enterprise in a different light is if you work with your partner to add a story or context to that information. So kind of regards to equipment schedule, are you guys purchasing more cranes? Is there an anticipation that we'll add units down the line or potentially next policy term? Having that information up front will allow us to price our risk more competitively as we know where you have more premium coming down the line. An example, a crane went down and there was an operator at fault at your operation. Well, us understanding the operator no longer works there will greatly benefit our analysis because we understand that you've took proactive controls to limit and also protect your equipment from this type of exposure going forward. Also understanding kind of what they do and what their plans are. So maybe they're not going to be going after the biggest jobs. They focus in this niche and they've been doing it for 30 years and it's AC lifts. Well, understanding that they use the types of pieces of equipment and they only operate in the same vein in combination with a clean loss history will allow us to nail the pricing on that. First, like, okay, they have cranes and they lift. And if you don't work with a broker who understands your industry and can ask you the right questions to get to us, you might get a generalist response or pricing that isn't reflective of what your operations exposure should be.
Or then a claim where there is, no coverage there.
Yeah.
And I would say another thing and a topic that is brought up constantly, and I'm sure I can speak for Cam as well, is the misconception, understanding of replacement cost versus actual cash value.
Yeah. So it's a big aspect of our industry, and it's something as equipment operators you guys deal with every day. I'm sure you've seen just in the last 6 months, the price of used equipment and other market pressures has grown significantly. It's why it's important to ensure your equipment is valued appropriately, but also to understand what valuation type is on your policy. If you have replacement costs, and sometimes carriers will break it down by year chunks, so replacement costs 5 years, for example. If you aren't revising your values on your 6-year-old cranes at renewal, you could be paying premium for the replacement costs because we factor off the total insured value of your schedule. By paying it and not revising the limit, because the valuation type is now ACV on the item, we would only pay out the maximum of what the actual cash value at the time of loss is. So by revising your equipment values, it's an avenue to potentially save premium, but also ensure that what you believe you're going to get at claim time is a more true representation than just the number that's listed on the schedule.
Yeah, and it can go, it can go missed each year. And if, you know, you're not having a broker that's making sure and reminding you to look at those values, 2 years ago, make sure my math is right, your 2018 crane would have been within 5 years replacement cost, but now it's outside of that bracket. So if you're paying, for that dollar amount of a $700,000 crane on your total insurable value, but in the event of an incident, you're only getting back, let's say 350,000, it's just one of those ways whenever we're not seeing any premium decreases out there, it's what can you do to manage your premiums, and it's staying in tune and focused to actually what your quotes are based on in your equipment.
A+ on the math, Miss Mathematician. That was good.
I'm sitting back here trying to do that real quick. You have anything else you wanted to note on that?
I'm pulling, what am I pulling?
Yeah,
right
so
now?
this is a good segue because I think we just slightly touched on it. But what can an insured do to pull some levers to get some premium savings down on the inland marine side of things? What are some loopholes and,
Well, the first thing that you can do is work with a market partner who understands the industry. So, one, they could review your policy and just see if potentially you're purchasing coverage that isn't adequate or isn't properly tailored to the operation that you perform. Some examples that we see is in regards going back to equipment schedules, something that hasn't been revised for 4 or 5 years. The equipment value has now shrunk to potentially 75% of what you're paying. Well, if that was never revised, you're going to now be paying 25% more premium on dollars that you'll never receive. So that's an adverse situation for an operator or crane and rigger. The other avenue that you can do is review your retention levels in combination with your agent and understand how risky is your operation and at what levels are you comfortable taking risks to. So if you are more comfortable taking risk, or say you have your highest value crane, it has your best operator, you have a comfort level with him and you understand that this guy knows exactly what he's doing. He does the same thing day in and day out. Well, potentially too, you don't have to have a retention level across every single crane that's the same. You could select out individual units that okay, well, this one's higher valued. We'd be comfortable going up to here. We're comfortable with the way our operator does it. Well, now we can start providing cost premium savings based off raising the retention on a specific unit or the account overall. So I think ensuring your equipment value is correctly adequate to the valuation type on your policy, ensuring that your deductibles line up with your risk tolerance, but also two, where you would like to be in the event of what you have to post in the event of a loss occurrence, are two ways that you can easily potentially find premium savings, but also ensure that you can sleep well at night knowing that your biggest assets at your company are well covered.
Trucks Dog, do you mind if I call you Trucks Dog?
Whatever works.
All right. So, Trucks Dog, you mentioned the retention levels, raising deductibles. Is there any level with Berkley that you may require the insured to post collateral?
So on the first party basis, there would never be a situation because that's first party physical damage. Potentially, if we started looking at if you had a large on hook exposure and wanted your deductible at a certain level, because of the legal liability nature, the third party aspect, potentially we would start considering that. But typically, when you're operating with an inland marine market, most of the time there will be that would never come into play unless there was obviously unique situations in insurance, but 99% of the time.
And something too that I wanted to piggyback off of when we were talking about cost savings. I think we need to look at that maybe in a different light because there's been so many times where yes, maybe you can save a couple $1,000s here and there at the beginning of the policy period, but are you subjecting yourself to, in the event of a claim, you're out in an additional $300,000, $400,000 that you could have had in your pocket if you had the right limits there. So yeah, it's an increased cost maybe at that time, but then again, in the event of a claim, if you have the right rental reimbursement, loss of income, those things matter when a claim happens. And paying maybe some premium more up front, you're going to keep hundreds of thousands of dollars back in your pocket.
All right. So, Truxton, we grilled you. You're the Trucks Dog grilled cheese right now, but now it's time. Get your water balloons out because it's time to ask us some questions. So, go ahead, let it loose.
Yeah. Well, first off, kind of what brings you to the marketplace here, and what are some of the things you've learned being at the SCRA this week?
It's an industry coming together to talk about current events, current issues. What can we do and what can we learn from people? I've been coming to these for 10 years, and there's always something new that I take away. Obviously, it's a great opportunity to get in front of our clients, get in front of our carrier partners, meet new carrier partners, meet new clients. But as well as we present. We're a preferred producer for the SCNRA, so we present. So it gives us an opportunity to get our voice out. But I mean, also we're hosting a podcast here.
Yeah.
So anything else from you, Landon?
No, I would just say, it's always evolving as well. So what we were talking about 3 years ago at these shows is completely different now. But being able to tell that story and continue to stay, involved because it's evolving, it's so important.
All right, what's the next one?
Kind of from your perspective, what can you or we as an underwriting company do to help you guys be successful and also help your insureds ensure that they can sleep well at night knowing they're fully protected?
I'm going to give you the 3 C's of what an underwriter can do for us and what an insurance carrier can do for us: communication, creativity, and claims. So let's dive into that. So communication. If you're seeing something change, if you're like limits for a piece of equipment when you need to engage reinsurance or just rate that you need on an account, that's something that we don't like to communicate 2 weeks in advance. We like to get that well in advance. It's an insured's first, second, or third largest expense, their insurance spend. So being able to get that communicated. Creativity. The property inland marine form and like what Berkley can do, there are so many different ways to set this up. Something big right now, because like you look at us, we're brokers, we're negotiators. The internal sale process, and what I mean by that, with the brokering the deal with insurance carriers, has been more important and more active in the past 2 years than honestly the past 10 when the market was a little soft. We need to come to you and say, when the general liability and the excess carrier come to us and say, whoa, we need to get the 30% rate increase. We don't just come back and say, well, we need it at 10 or we're gonna move the business. There's not many options to move the business to right now. So let's change the conversation. Historically, rigor's liability for crane companies has been on the general liability and excess, and it still is for a lot of the space. But a test that we've been doing with all of our clients this year is, does it make sense to move this to the inland marine? So we can go back to those general liability carriers and those inland marine carriers and say, well, how about we remove the rigors from the GL and excess, meet us in the middle, and then engage you at Berkley or an inland marine market to place the rigors liability. So, and then claims. Lifeblood of a crane company is their equipment. If the equipment is not working, if the equipment is down, they are out their largest revenue source. So making sure you're timely with claims, communicating, and the coverage that they're paying for is there.
I think that really goes back on to exactly why it's important to work with brokers and carriers who understand your operation. If you are positioned with someone who really isn't in the niche of cranes and you're a big crane operator, you'd be doing yourself a disservice because while at Berkeley Fire Marine, we can all write cranes as underwriters, certain pockets within companies, which your agents and brokers know, will have a better feeling on how to write that than if you just work with someone and they send it into a company and gets sent to a random generalist. Same kind of thing is reflective on the claims. So when you work with a partner who deals with cranes day in and day out, we have someone who only handles claims for cranes. What that ensures is he's not going to call you and be like, so what's a boom or
What's a
what's a
crane?"
jib? Like, they will get you your answers quickly, and they've also dealt with these situations day in and day out, so they can start being proactive versus reactive and helping potentially get salvage or find the best solution where, one, you're paid in a quick manner, but also, two, taken care of from the true coverage that's provided.
Yeah, and I think that's what's really important is the fact that you're here at this show, we're here at the show. It's such a high risk industry, and underwriting it from behind a computer, never actually living in it, and meeting these owners, hearing their pain points. It's really important.
Trucks Dog, I want to thank you because you board a flight
Yeah.
in like an hour, and we
And
want
I
to
think
thank.
I will say it's funny. I forgot to click record, so he has now done this for us.
Yes,
twice.
you haven't noticed, but we'll take care of that after. Yeah. So no, all good. Truxton, thank you very much for joining. We enjoyed it, and Beer and Boots podcast listeners,
See you next time.
see you next time.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah.